Thank you all for coming. This is wonderful to see everybody here today, full house, well worth it. Let's thank Amy and Alan Meltzer first for supporting this CEO Speaker Series. Alan's here today. So this series has already featured the founder of the Carlyle Group, the presidents of Google and Microsoft, the former head of the Kennedy Center, Deborah Rutter, and today we're delighted to bring Ed Glazer to American University. So thank you all very much. Let's also acknowledge Mark Duber from the Board of Trustees. David Duber's here. Some special guests. Mark Shriver is here from the Save the Children Action Network. Donald Dell, the legend, former tennis player who started the sports agency ProServe, which started every sports agency you've ever heard of from then on. They were the first. They were on the ground. They did the job. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. I am thrilled to introduce Ed Glazer. Ed and his family own two of the most successful and storied sports franchises in the world, the two-time Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Manchester United, a team of some significance, plays soccer and is currently tied with Liverpool for the most trophies of any English soccer team. In Mr. Glazer's 30 years with the Buccaneers, the Bucs have made 9 playoff appearances. They've won 7 division titles, 2 NFC championships, and 2 Super Bowls. Mr. Glazer was instrumental in assembling that coaching staff and the players for the 2 Super Bowl wins, including the recruitment of a guy we like to call Tom Brady, who won the last one for them. The Glazer family has helped transform Tampa Bay, and this is home for me. This is important to me. My dad was from Tampa, lived in Tampa for many years. My cousins still live in Tampa. And if you've gone to Tampa, I was just down there in January, it's a completely different city. It's unbelievable. The downtown area is spectacular. They created the Glazer Children's Museum. They provided 5 million meals for residents during the pandemic. And there are ties here. Several members of the Glazer family attended AU. In fact, I graduated with one of them in 1987. Ed attended AU before graduating from Ithaca College, and we are thrilled to have him back. And with that, I'm going to introduce my friend, Dean David Marchick, who will sit down and chat with Mr. Glazer. Dean, David, it's yours.
Thank you all for being here. I'm sorry for the people that don't have seats. I'm actually happy anytime we don't have enough seats for an event like this. Thank you all for coming. We have a bunch of our coaching staff and student athletes, so it's going to be a great day. And thank you, David Aldridge. David is a wonderful, nice, calm person, unless he's sitting on the sidelines of an AU basketball game, and then he's dropping F-bombs at the refs. You basically don't want to sit near him. It's actually just uncomfortable. So thank you for being here. Ed, thank you so much for being here. I actually learned that I think his first job was being a cashier at the Eagle's Nest. So pretty good launching pad. So congrats on taking that and doing pretty well. Let's start with your family. Your family, they were immigrants. Your dad started with like $300 as a watch salesman. Yep. How did he go from going door to door and selling watches to building kind of a business empire?
So his father started in the jewelry business, owned a little jewelry shop we're from Rochester, New York. And my father's father passed away when he was 13. And he kind of took over the family business at that point. And there's a million stories. I could take hours telling stories about that. But really, my father just got started really in real estate after he did the jewelry business, which was not much of a business. Started with single-family homes, a single-family apartment, just really, very small, and just one by one, his philosophy was always anything you make, reinvest, and from there he went into what really took my father into a more successful place was in the early 70s. He got involved in the TV business, actually, and he owned a network-affiliated TV station, so it would be like your local NBC or CBS affiliate, and really got into that business. And in the early 70s, the TV business was, every single TV show that was on television would reach 50. If you had a hit TV show, it'd be reach, a Super Bowl-sized audience, 50 million people a week. And that really was what I'm going to say took him into he got into the business at the right time when it kind of just took off.
And there's 6 kids in your family, and your father actually sadly became ill at a relatively young age and passed away at a relatively young age. And you and your family then took over the business. And so how do the 6 kids split up responsibilities, and what do you do compared to
what's interesting, my father would always, we use the word in my family, drag. He would drag us to his office growing up. From a small age, he would make sure everybody came to his office, and we would just sit there. And his thing was he would say just ears open, mouth closed, and just listen. And as a child, it was a horrible experience. But, I learned a lot. We all did. And he wanted us by his side to learn. His father died early, so he was always under the impression he was going to die early, and wanted us to learn everything we could. So we've all worked in our family business really from an early age. And fast forward to today, really what's happened is I have 4 brothers and a sister. And the way it's really all worked is we all kind of have our own little piece of the pie, right? So nobody's stepping on each other's toes. Everybody's kind of doing something different. So if you look at, in Tampa, for example, while we all sit in the room and make big decisions together and I talk to my brothers every day, if not more than once a day. But on a day-to-day basis, we're all kind of focused on different things. I spend a lot of time, I basically oversee all the revenue at the stadium, right? So anything ticketing, anything concessions, anything that happens at that stadium, all the revenue there is something I work on, oversee on a day-to-day basis. But on top of that, everybody's involved in everything, right? And we're all talking every day. It could be anything from marketing to community relations to whatever we have going on that particular day. Players, drafting, headed to the draft tonight. So it's worked, and that doesn't always work for family businesses, but also we all live in different cities, which I think is a key to success is not being in the same office. But
So you have the draft tomorrow. Would you like to, we won't tell anybody, but who are you going to draft?
Best player possible.
Okay. When you all you've been with the Bucs for 30 years, and a lot of the people with hair like me remember, like when you took them over, they were horrible. I remember the people used to go with paper bags. What were they? I can't remember what they called themselves, but paper bags over their head with holes in it. So, they were really the worst franchise ever, pretty much. How did you, this is probably the last time you'll talk to me,
It's
but
the truth. It's the truth.
how did you turn it around? What were the keys to turning it around?
So ironically, this year is our 50th year in Tampa, and I'm working on a film we're doing. It's going to be coming on in the fall, which is the history of the Buccaneers. And we've gone through and interviewed 100 people throughout since '76 to today. It's been a monumental undertaking, and it's been fascinating to go back and look back. And there's a lot of images of people with bags over their head from the early days. But I think really for us, the big thing was, like anything, it's all about the leadership, right? So when we came in, we were very fortunate. We hired a very young man by the name of Tony Dungy, who now everybody knows. But at the time, he was an African-American coach who couldn't get a job. He was a defensive coordinator of the Vikings, had a great resume, but there weren't a lot of minority head coaches in the NFL at that point. I think he might have been the second or third ever hired at that point, was looked over constantly. And he came in for us and brought stability and really brought great leadership. And we were very fortunate. Our first draft as owners, in our first round, we drafted 2 Hall of Fame players, Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks, who are so when your first round of your first draft of your first year, you can get 2 Hall of Famers, makes things a little easier. And we were very fortunate. From that point on, we within a few years, we were in the playoffs, and it was exciting.
And so tell us how the football business works. So each league is a little different. I have the most familiarity with baseball, but how does the revenue split work between the teams and the league? And basically, there's 3 revenue streams. There's television, tickets, and merchandise.
So what makes the NFL unique, and I think really if people would agree, what's made it so successful is everything is shared. It's everything really goes into one bucket, and is shared between the 32 teams. All the TV money is shared, all the ticket money every week, 60% of the revenue gets kept by the home team, 40% gets put into a bucket. All the league-wide merchandise sales get shared. So what that allows you to do is, if you're in Tampa, which is not New York as far as market sizes, or Jacksonville or Green Bay, you're able to compete on an equal playing field with the much bigger markets. And I think that's what's led to the NFL's success is every year, I don't care who you're a fan of, you feel as if you have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, right? If you have a good team, there's nothing holding you back. You don't have another team in the league who's spending $500 million more than you on a salary cap or payroll. Everyone's got the same payroll. So it comes down to who can draft well, who can sign good players, who can identify talent, and if you could be a little better than somebody else, you've got a real shot every year. And that's what really makes it so exciting. I think that's been the key to their success.
And the salary, there's a big salary differential too. I guess the highest players in the NFL make
maybe 30 million around there.
Whereas baseball, we have $700 million contracts. Basketball, David, LeBron I don't know, the top players make 40 or 50 a year.
So I might say 30. It's probably more than 30,
but chump change. So do you think that is sustainable, or do you think there will be kind of, there's a salary cap right now, which helps keep salaries down, but.
Well, ultimately, the other part of the NFL is it's a partnership with the players. It's really, if you just put everything you read aside, really 50 cents of the dollar goes into the players' pockets. So it's a very equitable agreement. So as TV money gets bigger, every dollar more that the NFL can generate, 50 cents of that goes right back to the players. So that number, you see the salary cap is just, it's just gone like this, and which allows the players to make a great deal more money also.
Now, how many of you all have been to a soccer game in Europe?
Wow.
Okay.
That's a lot.
I've never been, but my son did a study abroad, and he went to a couple, and he said it was the best sports experience he's ever.
Yeah.
So how is it different, would you call it soccer or football? Or
depends where I am. Here I'll call it soccer.
The difference between the cultures of the games and the fan experience of a soccer game in the UK versus a football game.
It's a completely different experience, and I tell people the same thing. If you have any opportunity to go to a soccer game overseas, it's something you've never experienced in anything in America. People ask me what's the difference. I always say the difference is really over there. It's the closest thing you can get to religion as you have in America. People are, when you're born over there, you are, here if you're born, you're this religion, and that follows you perhaps your whole life. It's the same thing over there. You're born and your father was a supporter of this team and your grandfather was a supporter, and it's just an experience like you've never seen. The game of soccer is just thrilling. There's a reason it's the world sport. All you need is a ball. You don't need to figure out the rules. It's very simple. And that's what makes it such a wonderful, wonderful sport. And the game can just, if anybody watches soccer, it's just an amazing sport to watch. There's no, it's 45 minutes. There's no timeouts. There's no stoppage. There's no one's getting up in their seats to go to the bathroom. No one's getting up to get a beer. They're there for 45 minutes of nonstop excitement. We just had a game last week against Lyon in the Europa League, and it was one of the most thrilling games I'd ever seen in my life. And it was just, we were up 2-0, then it was 2-2, then they had 10 people and they scored 2 goals and it was 4-2, and then it's 4-4, and then in stoppage time, with a minute to go, we win. And I've been doing some exciting games. It was, I say, probably one of, if not the most exciting games. And it wasn't a Super Bowl. It wasn't a Champions League final. It was just a Europa semifinal. Yeah. And it was, so if you ever get a chance, make sure you go. It's an experience like no other. I'm going to say one other thing about that is when you go to a game over there, the opposing fans are not spread throughout the stadium. They're in one section in the corner of a stadium, and this is what I think really makes it great. So you have all the opposing fans in one corner, surrounded by police officers, hundreds of them. And so you have this dynamic of the home crowd and the opposing crowd just cheering, and it's something I keep talking about, wanting to replicate here in our stadium. I get a lot of pushback, but I think that's really also what just makes it so exciting is it's very clear of where everybody is seated.
Right. But do we have a lot of Eagles fans here? Okay. What makes Eagles fans so obnoxious?
Well,
I mean, that's kind of an experience with any.
Listen, it's. I will say they're exciting. I'll say, it's in Tampa. It's 95 degrees. You're in your shorts. You're sweating. You're watching the game. In Philadelphia, for example, it takes a certain kind of enthusiasm to get up and be 10 degrees and in your winter jacket and watch a game. And it's a whole different level of fandom. It makes the Eagles fans so great.
Now you go to every stadium every year.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're looking for at each stadium?
Yeah. So one thing I've done over the years, which is interesting, is I'm a season ticket holder at every single NFL team. And the reason I have one seat, if you need one seat in the upper deck, I've got it. And the reason I've done that is because I always want to see from a business perspective, how do they treat their fans? How do they treat their customers? And so I get to see how every email they get, everything they send them as a gift, every way they interact with their fans, I get to see it. They don't even know I'm a season ticket holder. And if you want to know anything about your somebody else's business, you have to kind of see what's going on. So whether it's that perspective or going to the stadium and walking around and seeing how they treat people, we've been very fortunate. The NFL has something called the Voice of the Fan. They will interview their fans, survey their fans 3 times a year, every year. And I think we're 13 out of the last 15 years, we've been rated number 1 in the NFL in customer service, which is, I couldn't be more proud of that because when you're losing on the field sometimes, you're not happy as a fan, right? But for your fans and customers to say, hey, we feel valued, we feel like you're doing a great job, even though things haven't gone maybe as well as we'd hoped for on the field, that takes a lot of effort. And going to all the stadiums and seeing how they're operating is something that's key to that.
So you just go sit and nobody knows who you are?
I don't go to the games. No. I'm just got the ticket just to see how they interact and what they do, how they communicate.
Okay.
I'm not going and sitting in the stands. But anytime we go to another stadium, we always get there early. I'll walk around the stadium with my brother and, just to see what do their concessions look like? How do they treat the people? What do they have going on? What are their new spaces? The stadiums are changing all the time here. What have they added?
Right.
And, listen, I'm not too proud. Any good idea I'm gonna take.
Now I really appreciate you being here because you and your family are famously very private. You don't Jerry Jones is on TV every day, everywhere.
Yeah.
So why is it that you have chosen kind of approach to be very low key and you don't do a lot of interviews, you don't do a lot of events like this?
Yeah, I think really probably 2 reasons. I think one, we're in a family business, right? So the difference in the Cowboys, for example, is Jerry Jones is the face of their franchise. He always has been, as a lot of teams are. But I'm one of 4 brothers and a sister, right? So it wouldn't be so smart for each of us to be out there. We may say different things. We may not be on the same message every day. So we've just chosen really from day one. Ultimately, our feeling is this: we're here to build a successful team, right? And nothing speaks louder than success. And words are not always don't translate into success. You could say a lot of things, but it doesn't mean anything. So our feeling has always been we're going to hire who we think are the best people possible, support them in every way we can, and let our talking be on the field, right? Okay. And it's served us well. Maybe it hasn't. I don't know, but it's what we've chosen to do as a family.
So a number of years ago, one of you all in the family, you don't have to tell us which one, but feel free to if you want, said, okay, there's a guy, Tom Brady. He's unemployed. Yeah. Maybe we should try to get him to come to Tampa Bay. So who thought of that idea, and how did you get him? Yeah.
Well, we had just come off, we drafted the number 1 pick in Jameis Winston, and Jameis had come off, was his 4th or 5th year, I can't remember, and he had thrown 30 interceptions and 30 touchdowns, which was an NFL record. And you just can't be successful in the NFL by throwing 30 interceptions. It's impossible. Our first Super Bowl year, we had a quarterback named Brad Johnson. I think he threw 6 interceptions that year. And, when you have that low of a turnover rate, you have a real opportunity for success. If you're throwing 30, you're going nowhere. Okay. And so we had a new coach in Bruce Arians, and it was, we generally sit down at the end of every season with our general manager, Jason Light, who's done an amazing job for us, and Bruce at the time is myself, my 2 brothers, and we talk about where do we want to go from here, right? What do we need to improve upon? Where are some glaring holes? And we all agreed, 30 interceptions is not going to work for us. And then you start talking, well, who could be available? And you hear these rumblings that Tom Brady may be a free agent. I don't think any of us really believed it, that they'd ever let Tom Brady walk out the door. But they did. And, it doesn't take much to see what Tom Brady's done, right? He's been just an unbelievable quarterback. And we all agreed at that point, let's go after Tom. And we were successful. And boy, that was
what did he
exciting.
want? Was it money? Was it he wanted control to create a winning environment? What were his top 2 or 3 things that he was looking for?
I think for Tom, it was a combination of things, and he's told this. He's told this himself. He actually had little cards he had. He scored everything for the teams that were interested in him. And I think at the end of the day, it was probably us, San Diego, and who the third team was he was talking to. But he would kind of ranked everything. Who maybe skill positions, the city he wanted to live in. He has his oldest son lived in New York City, right? So for him, the idea of being on the West Coast, I don't think was as attractive because he wanted to be able to see his son. He'd been playing 20 years in a freezing climate. He's 40 or 41 when we signed him. So that's not that appealing. And he kind of scored it all up and said, Tampa's on paper was a great opportunity for him. And it worked out phenomenal.
And taking someone who's in their 40s, we were just talking about Max Scherzer, who's one of the greatest pitchers ever, got a $130 million contract, threw 3 innings, and he may be done for a while.
Yeah.
There's a big risk for you taking now it seems young for me, but
Yeah.
So were you worried about his age or?
It's Tom Brady.
Right,
He's got 6 Super Bowl rings. I actually would stop going to Super Bowls because he was there every year. I always I had a joke. I said, my calendar never had the Super Bowl in it. Tom's came pre-printed with the word Super Bowl on the date because he was going.
He was great. Okay.
And it was just and I remember what's funny is I remember going home, sitting down with my kids. I have 3 daughters, and I hadn't even discussed it with them. I'm like, I think we're going to sign Tom Brady. And they had just, they just lost their mind. But what surprised me, which may seem crazy, was you knew Tom Brady wasn't a great quarterback. You knew he was a legend, but he was so much bigger than even I expected.
Right.
What he did for our franchise, for the city, in a millisecond was so much greater than I ever could have imagined. And it almost sounds silly, it was just shocking to me.
Now, was he a good team guy? He's got a healthy ego. Looks good. He knows what he's done. But was he a good glue guy, or was he everything about himself?
You have to remember, this was the COVID year, right? We couldn't even get near the players the first year. It was everybody was so separated. So what's amazing about Tom Brady is he is the nicest person you've ever met. Sometimes you meet people, they're nice once, you're like, yeah, I don't know, right? But every time if you get a chance to meet him, he couldn't be any nicer, couldn't be any more respectful of everybody, great teammate, but that guy has a determination to win like I've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen. And there's a great clip from the Super Bowl when they were down 28-3 against the Falcons in New Orleans, and they were interviewing against the Falcons, and they were interviewing one of the coaches who was on the Falcons at the time. They're up 28-3, and somebody says, and the guy's all nervous. They said, and this coach who used to coach at New England, and he said to the person on the sideline in Atlanta, he says, "You don't understand. That guy's a stone cold killer over there, right? He was the only person who knew and saw what was going to happen because he knew Tom. And Tom is, there's a reason he's the most successful quarterback. I've never seen anybody driven like that person. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Do we have any Patriot fans here? Okay, so is he going to be remembered as a Patriot or a Buck?
A Patriot.
Come on.
In Tampa, he'll be remembered as a Buck.
Okay.
But when you win 6 Super Bowls over 20 years, he's hopefully remembers both.
So you grew up as the Redskin fan that was formerly called. Sorry, we beat you.
But I wasn't
last
a fan of the Redskins, to be clear.
Okay.
I grew up a Viking fan.
You grew up. Okay, so the Commanders beat you last year. So sorry about that. But what's your assessment of our team, our quarterback, and our prospects?
Listen, it's a quarterback league. If you have a quarterback the sky's the limit. And there's 32 teams, and I would say 10 have quarterbacks. 22, maybe 10 think they have a quarterback, and 10 have no shot. And the reality is, and there's probably 4 or 5 elite quarterbacks, right? Who you every year, the Patrick Mahomes of the league, that you just they're the ones you're trying to beat. And if you have a quarterback, which Washington clearly seems like they do, boy, it's exciting. I mean, I'm excited. It's good for the league. I'm excited to see the Commanders be successful. We played them opening day last year. We beat them. We lost in the playoff in a close game. But it's exciting from a fan's perspective. People forget. Yes, we are fortunate enough to own a team, but we're also fans like everybody else, right? So it's exciting for the league.
Right. Okay. I'm going to shift to kind of student development and the sports business, and then we're going to open up. So think of questions. But every time you meet, we're going to create a sports program. We have a great business entertainment program. We see sports as part of entertainment. I don't know if you would agree with that. Every time we meet, you say the same thing. What are you doing to get the kids internships? Why is it that you think internships are so important for all these students?
I have 3 daughters who are in college, and I just see everywhere that people, it's great to go to college. It's great to go to a great college. It's great to go to a place like this. And I got to say, David's done an amazing job here. I don't think you even realize how lucky you are to be here, because he has built an amazing program, and this place is what an amazing future here. So kudos to you.
Okay, well, the interview's over. Thank you very much.
But why are we here? We're here to use college as a bridge to have a successful career, if that's your goal, right? And so we have to take advantage of the opportunities we have here to launch into something that we have a passion about. So whatever your passion is, to me, the bridge is college to help you, not just teach you, but to help you, right? It's nice to get an education, but if no one's going to help you get somewhere, I'm not sure we're accomplishing anything. So, I think you and I are very aligned in this thinking of just using this to be a great platform.
You were probably a better student. I was not a great student. I learned a lot out of the classroom. So I think the out of classroom learning is as important, if not more important.
Yeah.
But you would agree, or you?
Listen, the only worse student than you was me. So
okay.
I don't even people know. I went to American University my freshman year. I was a freshman here. I lived in Anderson Hall, and I had a lot of fun here. And when I was a freshman, my brother was a senior. My sister was a junior. I had another brother who had already graduated here. I have another brother who went to law school here. So there are long ties to American University in the Glazer family. But when I was in high school at age 15, I had a job at a local family shoe store. And I tell people, every single person should work retail. It should be mandatory. Kids today, it's all nice with all the electronics, but business is business, right? And you have to be able to communicate with people. You have to be able to negotiate with people. You have to be able to interact with people. And that's really the key to success, is having those skills. It's the phone is great, the computers are great, but ultimately you have to be able to interact. It's important to have that opportunity to learn firsthand. There's nothing more successful than sitting next to somebody in an office space and learning and listening. It goes back to my father said, ears open, mouth shut. Listen, learn. What you soak in is irreplaceable. And I think this generation is such an opportunity. If you really roll up your sleeves and you are able to have these skills of communication and being able to really just outwork everybody, I think there's so much more opportunity for young people than there ever has been, because not everybody has those skills today.
Now, if you get a resume from someone who's, say, graduating college, and the resume says, I'm the biggest sports fan ever, I love Tampa Bay, I know every stat that ever existed, and I'm going to be enthusiastic. Yeah. Or they say, I'm a good accountant, or I'm good at finance, or I'm good at marketing.
Yeah.
Who are you going to hire?
It's funny because when I'm interviewing people a lot of times, and I'll say, well, who's your favorite football team, or who's your favorite soccer team? And they'll say, oh, Manchester United. Or they'll say the Bucks. I'll say, that's not true. Okay? Like, really, who's your favorite team? Oh, it's Buffalo. Okay. So, it's what I think is most important is, and I tell my daughters this, and my oldest is graduating from Stanford in about a month. It's great to go to a great school. It's great. It's great to have on your resume. and this is something I've always told my daughters, and it'll open the first door for you. There's no question if you go to an Ivy League school or a great school or you accomplish great things here, it's going to open the first door for you. But when you get in that first door, I don't care where you went to college, if you went to community college or anything, that person who outworks you is going to be more successful. Nobody cares after that first job where you went to college. So it's just important to, I think the biggest key to success is how can you help somebody, right? Whoever you're working for, how can you help that person succeed? How can you make yourself valuable? I mean, we have people working for us for 30, 40 years in Tampa. We just had somebody who just recently retired. And people wouldn't understand how this person had been with us so long. But the key was, it didn't matter. That person made himself invaluable. And that's the key. Make yourself invaluable. Be there for somebody 24/7. Always asking the question, how can I help you? Because that person is, a lot of people have these people in their life. You can count on them, whatever you need. There's that one person, I'm sure you have somebody here, where you can count on more than anybody else.
100%.
And that person is invaluable.
Let me ask, okay. Let me ask you a couple more questions, and we're going to open it up. The most inspirational, best athlete you've ever worked with would be Tom Brady.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Yeah. The most difficult player you've ever had would be?
Listen, I think there are players that I'm always surprised because, and this kind of goes to the education also, that if the players understood, and this applies not just sports, it's everywhere, that if you're a good team player, people will keep you around longer, right? If you're beloved in the community, you may not be the best athlete anymore, maybe you're getting up there in age, but if you have been a great steward of the community, teams are going to keep you around longer, right? It's tough to cut somebody who's beloved in the community.
Right.
And someone who also is beloved in the community, I always say, they can have a highway named after them. You see it in all these different towns, coaches have highways named after them. Right. They can be mayor of the town. They can use that as a springboard. Right. But if you're going to be in the community and be a jerk to everybody, when it's time to make a difficult decision, they're the first person out because you say, you know what? He's not as good as he used to be, and he's really not a pleasure to be around. So we're going to find somebody else. But that's the key to all business, right? Yeah, if you're a team player.
And how do you deal with loss? I remember I was supposed to, the meeting was canceled because of the fires in LA, but I remember I was supposed to see you the Tuesday after the Commanders beat the Bucs in the playoffs, and I'm like, oh man, this meeting is going to suck. He's going to be in a bad mood. And how do you deal with losses?
I think that, listen, at the end of the day, only one team goes home happy. And you have to remember that. So it doesn't matter if you're 2-14. You don't want to be 2-14, don't get me wrong. But 2-15 now. But whether you lose in the first round of the playoffs, the second round, the championship game, again, the sting gets a little more because you're closer and closer to that prize. Right. But ultimately, even if you get to the Super Bowl, we've been very fortunate. We've been there twice, and we won twice. Buffalo Bills have been there 4 times in a row and didn't win once. Right. I don't know how you sleep at night. And you see interviews with these guys 50 years later, it haunts them. Right. You know, so, but only one team's going home happy. That's it. Even if you get to the Super Bowl. And when we won our Super Bowl a few years ago, I was sitting there talking to Antoine Winfield, and he was a rookie at the time. And it was our ring ceremony to get our Super Bowl rings. And I said to him, you know, do you realize that you have something that Barry Sanders doesn't have, Dan Marino doesn't have, Jim Kelly doesn't have? These are, you know, for the younger guys, these are Hall of Fame legends. And he looked at me. I don't think he even knew what I was talking about because he was a rookie at the time. But it's impossible. You know, to win a championship, it is, unless you're Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, it is impossible. It takes so many things have to go right. You have to have incredible talent. You have to have the ball's got to bounce your way. The referees have to call, some calls have to go your way. You have to be injury-free. It's very, very difficult. And listen, if you could do it, but it's also one of the most rewarding things. And that's why once you have a taste, it's all you're doing the rest of your life is trying to get back there because the thrill is just like nothing else on the planet. Okay, so last question, and Mike has the microphone. Besides you, who's the team to beat this year in the Super Bowl? And don't say Philly, please, because we don't like Philly here. Listen, I think if you have a in your wherever you are, and every year you pick your teams before the Super Bowl starts. It's always about the quarterback, right? Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be the Bills. It's going to be maybe Cincinnati, right? It's all about the quarterback. So those are the teams that you're always at the top of the list.
Right.
Because they're the toughest to beat.
Right.
Well, I think Washington, right? You know, he had a great first year. We expect the second year to go the same. And the teams without quarterbacks, I'm not sure anybody's picking them to be in the playoffs. Right? So that's
Okay. Who wants to ask the first question? Coach. Just introduce yourself. Yeah.
My name is Sean Graham with the Coach Mark.
Just use the thing for the, we have a lot of people watching.
Even better. Sean Graham, head coach of track and cross country, and your success is amazing, but I was hoping I could ask you about failure. Sometimes those lessons are learned in things that you didn't accomplish. Is there an event in your life or a thing that you wanted so much that you probably learned the most from by not getting?
you know, this is where if you're lucky, I'm very fortunate to be in the position I am with my brothers and sister, that you have the opportunity to affect change, right? It's one thing to be able to sit there and complain. It's another thing to actually have the opportunity to walk into an office and say, this has got to change, or that's got to change, or sit down with their general manager and have a constructive conversation. We want to win as bad as anybody else. You know, a lot of times people think, oh, the owners don't care, they're in it for the money. That's not true. As painful as every fan sits there, we feel the same way, right? We are as sick as everyone else is when things don't go well. And it's sometimes maybe even more upsetting because we do have the opportunity to affect a change. And if we haven't affected the change, it's even more disappointing because we actually could have. But you know, we've been at this for a long time. We've definitely learned a lot along the way. And I think you also have to be realistic too. I think there are years where you walk into the locker room and you look around, and sometimes you may look around and say, I'm not sure we have what it takes to get to where we need to go. And I think what's more frustrating is when you look around the locker room and you say, we have the talent to get to where we need to go, and we didn't get there, right? That's what's, I think, even more frustrating. Because with the salary cap and with free agency, you have these small windows. It's tough. You have these small windows to get where you need to go, and then unfortunately, it's tough to keep a team together. But when we were 13-3 a few years ago, after our Super Bowl year, we had a better team our second year, and we had lost Chris Godwin middle of the year. He was out. We had lost Tristan Wirfs, our phenomenal offensive lineman. Again, this is why it's so hard to do these things. And then Antonio Brown, we had that incident during the year. So we lost this incredible talent. We ended up being 13-3, our best record we ever had. Playing the Rams in the playoff games, divisional round, we're down 27-3. We tie the game up, and on the last play of the game, they throw a bomb. We do an all-out blitz. They throw a bomb to Cooper Kupp, and they're in the Super Bowl. And every team says this: woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I look back at that season. Boy, we had that was a Super Bowl winning team. Probably better than we had when we won the Super Bowl.
Okay, we have one up here. Just introduce yourself and. Yeah, just because we're live streaming this, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Stand.
Please.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Bamidele Daume, and I am an undergrad senior here under Kogod Finance. And my question is more like the Man United side, because literally you guys have one of the most loyal fan bases of all time.
Yeah.
But it's also the most volatile and demanding fan bases of all time.
Yep.
So, my question is, because you're the owner, how do you balance between, okay, you have that financial responsibility to increase value for your team as an asset, but also this is sometimes, as you just said, it's religion for some, many fans, many families. How do you balance between fan responsibility and then financial responsibility?
We never look at this from a financial lens. This is always about winning, and that's all we ever care about is winning. The most passionate fans overseas, they want to be, deservedly so, holding a trophy at the end of the year, and so do we. And anything less than that, it is disappointing, and it's not where we want to be if we're not holding some silverware at the end of the year. So, but as we all know, it's not all about how much you spend. It's not, if it was so easy, everybody would be winning everything every year. It's very competitive. And our goal, our responsibility is to win, and that's all we do every year. And sometimes sometimes we've had great success, and sometimes we haven't. But all you could do is, if the year isn't going great, all you could do is start over the next year and make some changes and hope to be back on top.
Yes. Just introduce yourself.
Hi, Seda Goff. I am, I guess, a AU MBA grad, and in my MBA used one of my MIS, Management Information Systems classes, to get an internship and job at the Redskins, and then turned into being there for 3 seasons. Fast forward, not aging myself, but 20 years later, I'm in venture capital, and one of the things that I've seen as a through line is the things you learn as being an athlete.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at, you were talking about internships and seeing that on resumes and the importance of that, what do you think is the correlation, or do you see correlations with student athletes as they go into the workforce and coming to apply for you? Are there any benefits to the things you learn being an athlete?
Well,
We have some interns that are available for you to hire.
Got it. I see you.
Listen, I think discipline. I think, when you're talking what it takes to be a student athlete, and I have friends, there's not much of an athletic bone in the Glazers, but my friends who have, just incredible kids who are athletes, and what it takes to play collegiate sports, what it takes to get there, the discipline, you have to give up. Maybe going to a party, maybe doing certain things, eating a certain way, getting up at 6 a.m. to be at a sporting event to train. That takes incredible discipline. So you're dealing with somebody who is able to lead their life in a certain way that will be helpful in business, right? Because business is about being very disciplined also. So I view student athletes as it's a gold star on any resume, for sure.
Our student athletes are incredible. They work so hard. They get great grades. They actually raise the average GPA in our schools.
Yeah.
And they'll play a game against BU, finish at 10 p.m., get to their hotel at 1 a.m., and they're on a 4:30 a.m. flight to make an 8 a.m. class. It's just brutal.
And then with the shift of the conferences too. I mean, I see the West Coast teams are now playing on the East Coast. It's the travel is it's intense.
Yes, right here. Just introduce yourself, what year you are, and.
Hi, I'm Austin Schuler. I'm a sophomore. I'm a Kogod student. And I wanted to say I appreciate you touching on how important the atmosphere is at a soccer game, because I feel like not many owners oftentimes understand that from a fan perspective. So in European football, many diehard fans are increasingly feeling like they're being outpriced, and tickets are instead going to tourists who don't quite bring the same atmosphere. As United are one of the biggest clubs in the world, biggest club in England, they attract tours from everywhere. So how do you balance the issue of ticket sales, making sure that your proper fans get a chance to watch their team play compared to the tourists who have a lot more money to spend but don't quite bring the same atmosphere?
Yeah, but when you look at sport across the board, and I'm going to switch over to American for a second, but 20 years ago, if you were somebody who grew up in Cleveland and moved to Tampa, you were a displaced fan. You probably more than likely became a local fan of Tampa because you had no communication with Cleveland anymore. You couldn't watch a game. But today, there's no such thing as a displaced fan. You are online 24/7. You can watch every single game on television. So that's changed dramatically. The other thing that's changed dramatically is this advent of secondary ticketing, which didn't exist 10 years ago, right? So, 20 years ago, you'd go out. I remember meeting people in back parking lots getting concert tickets, right? So now you go online, you can get a ticket to any match or any game you want. You go to any stadium, far more in America than overseas, you may have 50% of the fans are opposing fans these days, which was unheard of. You watch the Vikings play the Packers, it's half purple these days, it's unimaginable 20 years ago. Overseas, it's still much harder for opposing fans to get in the stadium. Access to tickets, I should say, not getting the same. Access is not the way it is over here.
Well, you're not actually allowed to sell your tickets if you're a season
it's a lot more difficult over there than it is over here. I mean, I have people call me all the time like, I want to go to Manchester United game. I can't even find a ticket. How do I even get a ticket? I can't even figure it out. So this is why you have this unique experience I was mentioning earlier of these opposing fans in an opposing section. But listen, it's evolving. It's evolving for everybody, and we always want our fans in the stadium. But it's a free economy too, and if somebody's willing to, if we sell our ticket to a fan and they choose to resell it, it's not something we want.
Right. Right. It's also lost revenue for you. Yeah,
Listen, I mean, you want your best fans in the stadium. You want your hometown fans in the stadium.
Okay. Charlie. Just introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Charlie. I am a sophomore for about a week, a lot more. I'm studying business.
Assuming you pass, but okay.
Hopefully.
Okay.
We'll hope for the best. I'm on our seed fund, one of the first in the country, which is super exciting.
That's the venture capital fund I told you about. Yeah, it's great.
So I was curious. So about the beginning of the semester, I was at Harvard listening to David Rubenstein. Yeah. He recently bought the Oreos. Yeah. And his buying acquisition of it was very impact driven to the Baltimore community. Yeah. So I was curious, obviously in the rooms you are, I don't know a ton about the buying and selling of teams, but have you ever been offered a buyout, or how do people in your circles look at teams to buy? Do they look at fan turnout? Do they look at the team? What's like the primary driver?
I think it's different for everybody, right? I mean, so I think the league always tries to have new ownership be local. I think in a perfect world, it doesn't always happen. I think you look at Josh Harris here in Washington, right? Someone who's from this area.
Grew up here, yeah.
Grew up a Redskin fan, even the previous owner, right? Diehard Redskin fan, Commander fan. And generally the people who are buying teams, I said earlier, they're about as big as fan as there are out there. This is something that they've worked their whole life for, and are passionate about the team that they're buying. Not everybody's local, but I think everybody looks at it differently. So I think some people look at it as these prices are getting up there far more than they used to be. You're seeing now investment funds invest in teams, which wasn't always allowed in the past. You're seeing family ownership, maybe less than it used to be because of these prices. So I think it's different for everybody, but I do think the general correlation is the person who's sitting in that seat, they want to win. They're sports fans, they love the community, they love the team, and they want to win.
And you sold 25% of Manchester United for $6-ish billion. And what led you, a $6 billion valuation, so you received a check for $1.5 billion, which seems like a lot of money. And so what led you to sell 25% of that team?
Listen, I think that we're in a family business, and it was really it was a decision we made collectively, and not every decision is 6-0.
Right.
But ultimately, I think why we've been successful in a family business, and we've always kind of agreed that if the majority of family members want to do something, we realize we're in a family business and we have to do it. It maybe one day something I'm in favor of, the next day I may not be in favor of something. But in this particular decision, it was a family decision.
Got it. Ed Glazer, thank you so much for being here. You have two of the most valuable franchises. Your jersey sales are through the roof. We want to give you something more valuable than a Tom Brady jersey. I want to ask a few of the coaches, Coach Harper, Coach Jennings, Coach Jackie, Coach Ike, or Coach Nate. I don't know who's going to do it, but come up. We're going to get a picture and give you some American University jerseys.
Thank you.
Come on, Ike. Come on up, guys.